2010, multi-millionaire Forrest Fenn would hide a treasure box somewhere in the Rocky Mountains containing enough riches and jewels to be worth easily over $2 million. Weeks later, he would self-publish an autobiography, The Thrill of the Chase, which contained a poem with 9 clues hinting on how to find it. From this, Fenn would unknowingly set off a 10-year nationwide hunt, sparking discussion boards, news articles, controversy, and leading over 350,000 searchers to the Rocky Mountains, all in search for this treasure. This is the story of a modern treasure hunt for Fenn's gold. The biggest question that comes to mind during this is, well, why? What's the motive behind hiding a treasure chest full of gold, jewels, and valuables in the wilderness of the Rocky Mountains? Well, it all started in 1988 when Fenn was diagnosed with a form of kidney cancer, particularly affecting his right kidney. When he was given a prognosis by his doctor that was likely to be terminal, Fenn reflected on his life. What can one person do that might impact life 1,000 years from now, he wondered. Having grown up reading adventure stories about pirates, cowboys, and Indians, he decided that he would let others have their own adventure by hiding treasure in the Rocky Mountains, post a poem with clues for the world to read, and then be buried next to the treasure so that anyone who found it would essentially be robbing his grave. A unique legacy, to say the least. However, this plan never came into fruition because Fenn, even with slim odds of survival, actually beat the cancer. He survived. He could never quite let go of this idea, though, and it caused him to, 20 years later, finally set out to complete his plan. Without the grave part. And it worked. Maybe a little more than he expected it to. Back in 2010, Fenn initially printed 5,000 copies of his book, The Thrill of the Chase. Never expecting to sell much more, Fenn was content. However, when the Today Show interviewed Fenn back in 2013, it would forever change the popularity of the hunt.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, there has been an absolute frenzy over this. This is generally a sparsely populated part of the country, but maybe not so much anymore. People are just so interested in this. And what has the reaction been like for you?
Well, it's been hectic. My website crashed for 7 hours yesterday because it had so many hits.
After this, bookstores all over the country would be quickly selling out, selling approximately 25 books a minute at its prime. Now, an estimated 40,500 copies have been sold. For treasure hunters, this autobiography was not essential for starting the hunt as it contained the poem. The only direct information from Fenn himself that would lead to the treasure, and it is mandatory for anyone getting involved into the hunt to study and analyze it to its absolute limit. Communities and websites were made around interpreting it, along with posts dedicated to amassing as many viewpoints about the poem as possible. Well, enough talk about the poem. What does the poem actually say? Well, it goes like this. As I have gone alone in there, and with my treasures bold, I can keep my secret where an hint of riches new and old. Begin it where warm waters halt, and take it in the canyon down. Not far, but too far to walk. Put it below the home of ground. From there, it's no place for the meek. The end is ever drawing nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek. Just heavy loads and water high. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down, your quest to cease. But tarry scant with marvel gaze, just take the chest and go in peace. So why is it that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answer I already know. I've done it tired and now I'm weak. So hear me all and listen good. Your effort will be worth the cold. If you are brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold. Now, of course, many different interpretations of this text exist. To start, some people took the locations of the poem at face value and tried to come up with a set of directions that would point to the treasure. To start at Rio Caliente, a warm river, go through the canyon to the home of Brown, a bear-shaped pond, and continue on the dry river, which would be road, until you look down and reach the treasure. Some believe that, because the poem has 9 sentences in it, each of those sentences contains a clue, and even others believe that the poem was to teach the hunters that faith, friendship, and path was more important than any physical riches, and that there was never any treasure to begin with. Each and every person had their own interpretation of the poem, and with so many people all around the nation spending so many hours interpreting the poem, it was only a matter of time before people started to look for it. And well, look for it they did. Hundreds of thousands of people from all over the continent scoured the Rocky Mountains, all the way from Alberta in Canada through Idaho and Montana. Some as a casual sport, and others even going as far as quitting their jobs and spending their life savings, dedicating their lives to the hunt through years of research and analysis. Over the last decade, an insurmountable amount of people walked mile after mile searching through state after state, yet all of them failed. Was the treasure here, or maybe there, or maybe even all the way over there? Nobody knew, and that's what made the treasure hunt so alluring. Though it wasn't all this whimsical search for this mystical treasure. Some participants in the hunt took it way too far and were either infected or invested on their search. From damaging cultural artifacts, to digging in graves, to breaking and entering, and even more, these controversies led the public to question the many active hunters. And let's not forget about the people that have actually died trying to find the treasure. There have been at least 5 confirmed cases of death: Randy Bilyeu, Jeff Murphy, Harris Wallace, Michael Sexton, and Erik Ashby. They all died on their search. After the third death, Pete Caceres, chief of the New Mexico State Police, publicly asked Fenn to stop the hunt, as he believed it was putting the public at risk.
It can be avoided, right? People are coming from other states and other parts of the world, and they're underestimating New Mexico.
Chief Caceres says the 2 men...
Fenn, though moved by these deaths, denied, saying that stopping the search would not be fair to the thousands who have searched the Rockies. Adding on to these controversies, nobody had actually ever seen the treasure besides for allegedly Fenn himself. Particularly, the ex-wife of Randy Bilyeu, one of those who perished on the search, publicly stated that Randy lost his life searching for nothing. I believe he never hit the treasure. People couldn't rule out the fact that this treasure just might not even be real. Even with so many amateur and veteran treasure hunters alike cooperating and obsessing over the poem, picking through Fenn's exact words, his mannerisms, and what exactly his motivations were for the hunt, all while searching and combing through every possible location in the Rockies that they could all think of, they never found it. Many just gave up. Years after the initial start in 2010, with the excitement and conversation dying down, and the trail running cold for many for the umpteenth time, many accepted that if the treasure was real, the location might die with Fenn. And it was beginning to look like it would. Well, that's not exactly how the story ends. As you might have guessed, it was actually found. Though we don't know where exactly it was found, we do know that on June 6, 2020, in the state of Wyoming, the treasure was found by Jack Stueff, a 32-year-old medical student. Out of over 350,000 searchers, he was the one that finally managed to crack the code. Only just first hearing about it on Twitter in early 2018, Jack was instantly taken back to his teenage years, thinking about the TV series Push, Nevada, and a book named Mysterious Stranger, both of which were media that allowed viewers to try and solve real-life mysteries. Eventually giving up on his dreams and aspirations for adventure, he went on with his life. However, after hearing about this treasure hunt, he was obsessed. To quote, "I've probably thought about it for at least a couple hours a day, every day, since I learned about it. Every day." He scoured as many official sources of information from Fenn himself online, trying to get a feel for his personality and motivations for the treasure hunt. Only keeping to himself and his wits, he slowly but surely puzzled together the poem's true meaning and thought he found the true location of the treasure in 2018. In his own words, "This treasure hunt was the most frustrating experience of my life. There were a few times when I, exhausted and covered in scratches and bites and sweat and pine pitch and nearing the end of my day's water supply, sat down on a downed tree and just cried alone in the woods in sheer frustration. 25 full days of searching later, he finally managed to retrieve the treasure, ending the long 10-year hunt. The area it was found in was described to be under a canopy of stars in the lush, forested vegetation of the Rocky Mountains. Initially wanting to remain anonymous to avoid the lawsuits and blowbacks that would come with it, Stewolf and Fenn said next to nothing about the find. As a result of this, many people called the hunt fraudulent or hoax, as almost no details were released during this time. It was from this that Stewolf would eventually out himself as the finder on December 8, 2020, but there have still been no further details released on where or even how the treasure had been found, as Fenn never wanted to disclose the location. However, this would be the least of his worries, as on September 7th, 2020, Fenn would die at the age of 90. It's symbolic in a way, as Fenn himself stated, "I felt a part of myself leave when I finally closed the lid on the treasure for the last time." It's kind of fitting that he would die soon after the treasure was found. An adventurous and eccentric man at heart, inspiring many to dream bigger and better, to breathe in the fresh air and explore a little in the great outdoors, he left a lasting impression on those who kept up with or had even just heard about the hunt. Rest in peace.